Fantasy Network. I'm your host, Greg Ambrosius, and I'm joined today by another special guest. He is Andrew Geller of Flemington, New Jersey, and Andrew is our defending champion of the NFBC Rotowire Online Championship. That's right. Andrew won $150,000 last year. He topped 2,388 teams for that title. Andrew, congrats on winning that great title, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Okay. I know it's been 4 months now since you won that national title, but has it sunk in yet? And how does it feel to finally win that one after being so close the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, it sunk in for sure. I know, when it first happened, it was definitely a little shock to the system. And like you said, I've been close the last couple of years, and finally to get over that hump, I was definitely kind of in shock for a good week, 2 weeks there. But now I'm just looking to repeat, and that'll feel a little sweeter next year. So
that would be good to repeat. Nobody's ever repeated in the online championship, just so you know. I think it's 12 years or 14 years, and nobody's repeated. So good luck on that one.
yeah.
I got to talk about the money. So have you spent it? Have you reinvested it? What have you done with it?
Most of it, I mean, it bought, some stuff here and there, nothing huge, really. A lot went into the bank, a lot for the kids' accounts too. So, I haven't splurged anything too much, it didn't really change, my life drastically, in any way, but, definitely going to put it to some good use, probably towards the future.
Yeah, definitely. So this is the first time I've ever met you. You haven't come to the live events. First time I've actually talked to you. You are coming to Las Vegas this year. You're going to be in the KJ's Contract League on Thursday night, and then the main event on Saturday, which is going to be a fantastic time. But are you looking forward to Las Vegas? Are you looking forward to meeting some of the old guys?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I was telling you before, I've done the football side of the house a couple of times, but it's the first time for baseball. So I'm looking to kind of, see the faces to the names on Twitter and all that. And I'm sure it's going to be a fun time and a lot of good personalities there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, there's personalities there. Don't worry about
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Everybody's different, but it's a great, great group. Like I told you, it's almost like a family reunion when we all get together there. We know each other and we know their kids and such like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So you said have you been to our football high stakes events before?
No, I was at the
Yep.
other sites the last couple of times, and last year I wanted to do yours, but I had a conflict with the times, and
Yeah.
it just didn't work out at the end. But I think next year or this coming September, absolutely, I'll be there for the football side.
Yeah, yeah. So you're familiar with it and you know how that works and such. So
Yeah.
it'd be good to have you there for sure. Like I said, the Mirage is going to be a blast. I mean, on Saturday morning, we have the main event. We've got 7 leagues already. We may get 8, maybe 9. I don't know. We do have enough space for 8 or 9, but it's going to be great. They're all going to be drafting at once. We have the stage, which we call the Stage of Champions, where we bring up all past Hall of Famers, all past national champions. We'll introduce last year's national champions. So we're going to bring you up on the Stage of Champions. We'll give you the mic, let you say a little something if you want. Are you ready for that event?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be fun. Now, you said past Hall of Famers. What about future Hall of Famers?
We're
Does
bringing
that
up Sean
count?
Johnson as well. Sean is the Hall of Famer
Okay.
this year. If you win 2 in a row, that'll put you in line. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I told you about the jacket. I'm waiting for that, that tailor to come and size me up nice. So,
For the Hall of Fame jacket, absolutely. You're
yeah.
not in there yet. You're a national champion right now. But no, I mean, like I say, it's kind of goofy that we have a Hall of Fame, but honestly, when you are that good, we only have 9 guys now with Sean Johnson out of thousands of players. I think we do need to recognize people, and that would be something you're aspiring for. It sure sounds like, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's super cool that you guys recognize players that are consistent winners, over, a number of years. And, it's a lot of skill involved. And, I've heard people say, luck, is
Right.
majority. I do football and baseball, and it's not even a comparison. Baseball
Right.
is way more skill based, way more strategy, way more analysis. You got to be tuned in 6 months of the year versus football, once every Sunday and
Right.
or the Monday nights too. But you know what I mean? It's apples and oranges comparing the two. So
Yeah, minor leaguers. Don't forget, you're always following the minor leaguers. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it's just
there's
never
no
ending.
way that luck is a prevailing
No,
thought of winning in baseball. I'm sorry,
no,
like you
yeah,
say. I mean, you need luck, you absolutely do, but every single stat counts, right? You're looking at last week. You knew another strikeout, another stolen base, another win was critical to you winning the
oh yeah,
overall title, right?
oh absolutely, yeah. And you kind of it's just there's so much analysis and research that goes into this, and like you said, prospects and just the length of the season. I mean, it's just you really got to be dialed in for the entire season. So it's just fantasy baseball to me is like no other fantasy sport.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I just want you to know that when you come there to the live events, defending national champions are treated like royalty. Just ask Phil Dussault. I mean, my goodness, people were all over him. They were treating him like a king and such like that. It's kind of like when you hit a hole in one in golf. You come to the clubhouse and everybody wants to surround you, talk to you, and they'll buy you drinks. Now, I know when you get a hole in one, you're supposed to buy a round, but people will buy
yeah,
you drinks. Now, sometimes they're going to buy you drinks to try and get information out of you, just so you know. So,
yeah.
are you ready for that?
Yeah, I'm ready for sure. I think yeah, it's funny how it works because once I won, I kept getting DMs from people that I didn't even know of, and just congratulating me and just looking to kind of talk fantasy and that kind of thing. So it's cool just to your name's out there, and I'm always happy to talk baseball with anybody. So it's
Yeah.
definitely cool.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great time. You'll enjoy it as well. So, definitely. So, I got to ask you, I have this feeling like when you enter the online championship or the main event, you're shooting for the overall. I mean, everyone says you're trying to win the league title, but I've seen you post on Twitter and such. You're really going for the overall when you play those contests, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've heard people say they want to win their league first. No, I'm always shooting for the overall, and I think in the 12 teamers, the OC, you have to be a little more aggressive in certain spots.
Hmm.
I think a lot of owners will just fade certain guys, in certain rounds.
Hmm.
Um, to me, it's you got to take a chance here and there, right? You got to, especially guys that are going a little later. I would never cross them off my board. They're competing against what 2,300 teams
Hmm.
last year. I mean, you have to separate yourself somehow. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely on the more aggressive side of drafters, but I think to take down like an overall, you got to be a little aggressive in certain spots, and you got to be willing to be wrong sometimes. And to me, that's how I my process is. I'd rather take a swing and miss than just not swing at all. Not to be
Yeah.
cliche or anything, but
Yeah, in fact, you just posted today your latest online championship team. You said, here's a lot of risk, but I think it has great upside at Buxton and other guys like that. Again, that's what you're looking for, right? You're
yeah,
looking for that upside. Buxton's going in the eighth round of the online championship right now. Let's say he does stay healthy for 140 games one season. That guy's astronomical, right?
right, yeah. O'Neill Cruz is another guy where I've seen people just completely write him off their draft boards, and I'm
Hmm.
like, this is a guy going in the 70s, 80s. We're not talking a first or second round pick.
Right,
But the upside is that of a first, second round pick. So, a lot of
right,
times I see that guy, in the seventh round. I'll definitely take him. And, if I miss there, it's not going to kill me in the seventh round.
right.
But if I hit, then we got something going. So, yeah.
Definitely. All right. Let's talk a little bit about your past history with us. So, you didn't join the NFBC until 2014. You joined one Rotowire Online Championship League that year. Do you remember how you heard about us and why you decided to join the NFBC?
Yeah, I think it was actually on Twitter. I saw someone tweet something, the NFBC, and I was, at that time I was playing with buddies, home leagues, like a lot of the other players.
Yeah.
It was the points fantasy leagues, which is a completely different, animal than Roto. And I'm like, what is this NFBC? Because I was doing well in my home leagues, but I was always looking for that next level.
Right.
So I started reading up on this NFBC, and I'm like, I've never even heard of it. And then I'm like, this national tournament. Oh, there's thousands of teams or hundreds of teams at that time. I'm like, let me try this out. And then, like you said, I put one entry in just to get a feel for it. And I didn't even know what the hell I was doing that first year. I was like, wait, every game count. I thought it was like a weekly scoring period, and I didn't understand the whole roto concept even, and I was just immediately like just hooked first
Yeah.
year, and then since then it's just been all roto, all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. So, that first year, even though you didn't know what you were doing, you took second in your league and you finished 84th overall, which is not a bad debut
yeah,
at all. Do you remember much about that team or that year?
I don't remember much about the team itself, but I do remember, once I started, it was definitely rough, but I just went completely all in, and I was just became obsessed with it. I'm like, all right, now I started to understand the process and get a feel for, how it all works. And, next thing you know, I was actually being competitive in the overall. So I'm like, maybe I have a knack for this game. So, and that kind of just the beginning of my NFBC career, if you will. So.
Yeah, definitely. So you came back the next year. You played in 3 Rotowire Online Championship leagues. You won your first league title that year. Again, finished 120th overall. How did it feel to finally win that league title? Like, it kind of justified all the time you were putting in?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started, again, I was more looking at league only. I just wanted to, if I was in the overall contention, great. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to see, what it took to win your league first and foremost. And then once that comfort level kind of came, and I was able to kind of distinguish, how you play for the league, and then how do you play for the overall as well. That's when really the worlds kind of meshed together. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Now it's time. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the third year, then you took 6 Rotowire Online Championship teams. This is 2016. Finished second in one league, but in 2017, then you stepped up. You took 5 Rotowire Online Championship teams. You won 3 league titles, and you finished second in another one. Was there something that clicked in that 4th year in 2017?
Geez, I don't know if it clicked. I think I became more comfortable, like in the format overall, and just I was able to start balancing my rosters a little better as the years went on. Then I started, tracking all my teams, and using a lot of information that was out there from last year's winners, and just trying to get better, just not only from a game perspective, just from a knowledge perspective too. But I mean, at that point, that's when I was fully ingrained in fan. I mean, that was. I was on a mission. That's when my mission to the overall began, I think, was that year. And I just been, chugging along the way. So.
Yeah, that was 2000, like I said, 17. You finished 19th overall and 36th overall. So again, you were getting closer and closer now. And then you won another league.
My Twitter handle says I was born in overalls. I don't know if you knew that, Greg, but I think it applies to this contest. But yeah.
See, that's what I said. I knew you were going for the overalls all the time here. So, 2018, you won another Rotowire Online Championship league title. You only did 2 leagues that year, but you jumped into the main event for the first time. Now, that was the first time you did 15 teamers. Talk about the difference between playing 12s up to that point and then playing a 15 teamer.
Huge. Yeah, that was a huge leap, huge difference. And to be honest, that first year I was not prepared for the 15 teamers. Mm-hmm. My mindset was always focused on the 12s, and you really have to wipe that all out from your memory. And once you enter those 15s, it's completely different. Structuring your team is a lot harder. You're always going to leave the draft with a weakness here or there. Whereas 12s, you have like an all-star team pretty much every draft. It's just those extra 3 picks every round, but that adds up, over 30 rounds. So, those rosters get thin at the end, and health is a lot more important, obviously, in the 15 teamers. You suffer a couple injuries, in the mains, you're going to be, a lot more, in a lot more trouble than you would be in the OC. The replacement value is a lot more accessible in the 12s and then 15 teamers. So there's definitely a lot of differences between the two, a lot more nuance in the 15. But yeah, they're both fun, and the main is something I want to, get better at for sure. I know I had a good finish last year, or 2 years ago, but I feel like that's an overall that I need to be contended in as well. So
that helps in the Hall of Fame, that's for sure, when you get one of those. So you weren't doing draft champions leagues at that point. So that draft champions leagues are really a prep for the main event. I mean, in a way, what were you doing in 2017, 2018, before you got into draft champions to prepare? I mean, what were you doing before you jumped in the online championship and then that main event the first time?
I wasn't doing it these seasons, and I think that did affect me because, like you said, I do think that's a good, almost like a training ground for the main event. Just learning that player pool. Once I started the mains, I'm like, okay, the DCs are perfect for that. Just to get familiar with all the players, the pockets of where these players are going in, and that sort of thing. Because if you just go in playing primarily, 12s or best ball or whatever other format, and you go into a main event, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is a completely different world right here. So I would say anyone listening, definitely do the DCs if you're going to try a main event, and it'll help you for sure come draft time.
Yeah, the DCs are interesting. So when we started this, it was kind of an idea with KJ Duke came to me. A site called Ant Sports was doing draft and holds like that. CDM was doing draft and holds. Made a lot of sense to do it. We were involved with Mock Draft Central, and people were mock drafting on there. But of course, on Mock Draft Central, after 10 rounds, maybe you just bug out, right? So this idea came forward, and we said, okay. So we went 45 rounds with 15 teams. I was like, wow, this is deep, but people loved it. At the end of the year, Sean Childs comes up to me. He goes, that's not deep enough. People didn't have enough catchers. We got to go 50 rounds. I'm like, 50 rounds, 50 teams, 750 players. But think about it. When you're in a draft with 750 players, you know where the guy is going. You know where these minor leaguers are going, if they're close enough to
Right.
being called up and such. It is really a lesson to learn about 750 players, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there'll be guys taken in, 43rd, 44th round. And I'm like, who the hell is that guy? So
Right.
then it'll tell me to, now I got to research who this is, and
Right.
look up his, his pedigree and, what he's doing in the minors and whatnot. But yeah, so it kind of, puts guys out there that wouldn't normally, be on your radar for sure.
Yeah. So in 2018 was the first year you played in the NFFC. You did one Rotowire Online Championship. I think you took 10th in your league. Not a good debut, but were you playing the other side of the street, if we were, before 2018?
Yeah, I did, just because I started there probably around the same time I started baseball, and yeah, I don't know, just that format was a little different. And then I found the NFFC for some reason. I wasn't into the football side of things on the NFFC, but yeah, then I found that, and I've been playing ever since there as well. And I'm going to be putting more teams, I feel like, moving forward into that contest. So.
Does that third round reversal that we have over here, I mean, really nobody else uses that. Was that hard to get used to, or do you like it now with third round reversal?
Yeah, I do like it. And I like how you could, with the KDS, you could still, like the baseball side, you could kind of choose, if you're lucky enough, where you want to draft.
Right. Right.
But I like how you guys also, the payouts are different here. Like I've had a lot of bad luck on the other side where, you make the playoffs, you could be a 1 seed, you could dominate your whole league and walk away with zero.
That's not right.
At least in yours, yeah, you first or second, you're guaranteed money no matter what. And to me, it's definitely more of an ROI builder for sure. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's talk back on baseball again. In 2019, you came back. You cashed in 3 of your 5 Rotowire OCs. You finished in the main event. You did one more main event, 9th that year. So again, still learning that 15 team, but 35th overall in the OC. I'm trying to build a pattern here where you're getting close. You're getting close, and we're not even to where you get really close before you win it. But talk about, your development. Again, you're just getting closer. You're really maybe starting to think about the overall more than the leagues at this point, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, I started paying a lot more attention to, the overall standings every year, every week. So I would always track my teams against how the leaders of the whole tournament were doing and really see where I needed to gain momentum in a certain category, right? To me, I didn't care if I was in 3rd place in my league. I was still having my eyes on what the overall leaders were doing. So I think it was just more having a conscious eye towards, where I needed to get to, in terms of those categories. Like, you could be, 3rd in your league in steals, but you could be middle of the pack in the overall there. So I think a lot of times owners aren't paying attention to both of those, where you might feel comfortable in your league, but you look at that overall, you're middle of the pack. You need to pick up the pace there, even if, you're high in your league. And you guys just got to be conscious of the overall at all times.
Yeah, definitely. Do you aspire to the 80%? I mean, you want to score in every category. You can't really dump one category and try for the overall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to contend everywhere. In fact, last year, on the team that won it, steals, I was low until like June or July even.
Really?
It was the one glaring weakness on my team.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point, I'm like, if I have any chance to win this thing, I got to actually pick up the pace there and put a lot of time and effort into adding those steal guys. And sure enough, by the end of the year, I was probably elite in that category. But yeah, you have to focus on those categories early and make sure you don't fall behind too far, because there's a point of no return in the overall. So.
Yeah. And the 80% that I talk about is, if you look at last year's categories, you want to hit those stats that are at 80%. That won't get you the overall title. I mean, you need to be almost 90% on those categories, but you want to be competitive in all those categories because, like you say, with 2,400 teams, each category is worth 2,400 points. That's a
Yep.
lot of points in each one.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that for sure. All right, your second year in the NFFC, you came back with 3 Rotowire Online Championship teams. You won 2 league titles, and you finished 5th overall. Again, the theme is you're really competing for the overalls. I mean, in 1 year, you turned the corner in that one. What was the difference in football there, you think?
I think that year, that was a good year, but you do got to get in those football champ rounds. You do have to get lucky. You got to get on a heater.
Right.
And all my guys were healthy. I remember at that point, and I had a huge opening week, so put me in contention there. And then I followed it up with a couple strong weeks after that. But the football side of the house, I mean, there's a lot more luck involved in that sprint where you could enter the champ rounds in 400th place and win it all, right? Where in fantasy baseball, if you're in 400th place, you're looking towards next year, with a week left. So it's just a different game. But yeah, that was a good year of football, all around. So
cool. All right, let's talk about 2020. I don't like to talk about 2020 because it aged me in dog years with that pandemic. But you did jump into the draft champions for the first time in 2020. And of course, that was weird because then we had to suspend it, but we still kept the teams and such. But
yeah.
talk about why you decided to get into the draft champions at that point.
I think I was just looking to draft at that point. I mean, that was a super bummer. And, we all just wanted baseball. And then, once the 60 game, I know you guys were going back and forth, just following what baseball decided there. And we were always checking the forums.
You're putting my blood pressure up again now. Here it goes.
I would check. I remember checking those forums every time. Like, what did Greg update us, with this time? But I mean, it was unfortunate. I mean, it was a good year fantasy wise, but nobody wants a 60-game season. But so a weird year all around.
It was definitely, but you got into draft champions. Like you said, you joined one sprint Rotowire OC that we started when we knew it was a 60-game season. You won your league title and you finished 2nd overall. You also joined a sprint main event. And you finished 5th. Talk about taking down that sprint Rotowire OC national title, coming so close, even though it was a 60-game season.
Yeah, it's funny because before that, I was saying, I don't know how many teams I could draft. I was just down on, baseball, the whole thing. I'm like, you know what? I can't go this season without putting at least one team in, right? Yeah. So that, here you go. I put one entry in, and that one contends for the overall, finishes 2nd. So, I should put in 2 teams maybe, but that was, it was a different year. There's still skill. I've seen people, say that, you had to get super lucky to win, which you do with any, overall, but there's still skill involved. You got to pick guys, maybe strategy was going more for hitters, versus pitchers. A couple bad outings when the guy has 12 starts, Garrett Cole could, you have a 4 ERA, in 12 starts, but, it was just, it was definitely a different game for that year for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was unfortunate. But the weird thing was 2020, we were sold out in Las Vegas already. New York was just sold out. All the auctions were sold out. Yeah. All the high dollar, it was going to be our biggest year. And then unfortunately what happened. But all right, let's talk about 2021. That was your first big success in the main event. Again, you said you wanted to get used to the 15-team format. You wanted to be well in that. You entered 3 teams in the main event that year. You won 2 league titles and finished 19th and 31st overall. Again, was the key that you're familiar now with the 15-team, and do you feel familiar right now with the 15-team format?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think my comfort levels changed a lot. I feel like now I could walk into a main and be just as competitive as I would be in OC. Mm-hmm. But I think that year, primarily too, I made some good picks for sure. But health, my team was healthy. I don't think that's talked about enough in the main events where, people think the OCs, you got to get a little more lucky or whatever. But to me, just being healthy is there's a lot of luck involved in the main.
Right.
You could draft a great team, but if you have 3-4 guys go down, you're probably screwed. I mean, no matter what you do, it's just the fact that the waiver wire is so barren. It's that part of the main event isn't talked about enough. I feel like where if you get an injury or 2 in the OC, you're able to have a little more leeway there and you can still compete. So to me, that's not talked about enough. Where health is super, super important.
Well, no doubt, and talk about it, and here's why. Because you only have 7 reserve spots, and we don't let a
Yeah.
DL. And the reason we
Right.
don't have a DL, I know people want it. That would just make the free agent pool even more barren. If people were able to stash 2 players per team times 15, it'd be 30 players out of the free agent pool. So you have tough decisions in that 15-man or 15-team format because if you get 2 or 3 injuries, you don't want to cut those guys. They're
Exactly.
occupying your reserve spots, right?
Exactly. So you have essentially 3. You can't cut them, in that format. If they're getting
Yep.
regular at bats, I mean, you just got to wait it out, and then you're playing scrubs, part-time
Yep.
players in the outfield, and it's just not a lot of wiggle room. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, you definitely need health in the main event for sure.
Yeah. What advice can you give people? I'm just looking at your resume again. 2014, you join. 2022, you win the overall. You were competing for the overall for many years. Went from 12 team to 15 team. We'll even talk about you jumping into the 10 team. I mean, what advice do you give people who are like, I'm way behind the game right now. I don't know if I can join these guys. This is year 20. How am I
Yeah.
competing against Andrew Geller?
No, I would encourage anyone to jump in. I mean, there's a learning curve for sure, but that's with anything, right? Any sport, any game. It's not you're not going to win likely, for year one. Although you never know. But
Hmm.
I mean, you get in there, you learn. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of resources out there that weren't around 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
You take advantage of that. All these beat guys that are putting out information. That's what I'm always doing too. I'm always trying to get as much information as possible. I mean,
Hmm.
but if you're prepared, the player pool, you know how to balance categories. I mean, a lot of it's just a puzzle, right? You got
Right.
to balance that puzzle out, and
Right.
it takes time. But I feel like anybody, if they put in the work, they could do well for sure.
Yep. Well, that's the advice is don't be afraid of this. Jump on in. That's the only way
Yeah.
you're going to learn is to compete against these
Yeah.
guys, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So 2021, you won 2 main event league titles. Again, finished 19th to 31st overall. You also won 4 Rotowire Online Championship league titles, and you finished 4th overall that year. Finished 2nd overall in 2020. You also had a 49th and 51st overall. So talk about now getting so close that you can just taste that national title.
Yeah, that one was bittersweet. I'm like, yeah, because I feel like, once you get that, I was second in 2020, then I got up there, in 2021, and I'm like, I was tired of being a bridesmaid, Greg. You know what I mean? I got to be the bride at some point. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was like, how many times do I got to keep knocking that door down? And
Yeah.
it just, I kept going after it, and I'm like, I think this past year, I talked about this elsewhere. Is I took risk late in the year, but it wasn't crazy,
Mhm.
out there gambles, which I did the year before, and that kind of hurt me. Where I don't think I would have won the overall, but I could have, maybe got second or third, which
Mhm.
there's a pay jump there too.
Right.
It's pretty big, but yeah, it's just to be honest, I knew I had it in me. It was just to me, it was just a matter of knocking down that door so many times. It's got to budge open one time, and that's
Yeah,
it. Just
definitely.
kicked it down.
Have you ever won a national title in any other competing contest, football or otherwise?
Uh, Won it, no, the fifth in the overall with you guys, and then I
Yeah.
finished eighth overall in the FFPC
Yeah.
one year as well, but not in the. It was sorry, it was like 20th overall, but it was eighth regular season overall, which to
Yeah.
me is the crazier. There's like 10,000 teams in it, but
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah,
no, this was
definitely.
my first overall title, so
Cool. I
yeah,
know I've seen you on Twitter where you're trying to get the overall, so I didn't know if you had tasted it before somewhere
yeah,
else or not. So cool
yep.
stuff. All right, 2021, you also won a Draft Champions League title and a Cutline League title. So that's 10 team, 12 team, 15 team. Again, just talk about having success in all the formats because they all are extremely different animals, and you've got them all now.
Yeah, best ball. I mean, that's I picked that up recently. It's definitely a different game. It's a lot more. I don't know if it's unique. It's a fun challenge almost. Where when I first joined, I didn't understand why people were picking all these players that have multi-position eligibility. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's going on
Yeah.
here? Why are you taking
Yeah.
this guy when he should be gone 3, 4 rounds later? But then I realized, oh, that's why, because you get his points at all position.
Yeah.
So, I walked into that to your earlier point is like, you got to just jump in and learn the game.
Hmm.
So once I kind of, figured out roster construction and where to value certain guys in that format versus others, DJ LeMahieu came to mind, where people were drafting him as like a second or third rounder. Like, why take LeMahieu so
Trade
early in
positions.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
next draft I had, where I clicked in, I'm drafting every guy I had like 4 positions he was eligible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just those nuances to that format, which are really cool. And then, the 10 teamers you draft, I mean, you look at your team, you have it's the all-star game, your roster.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's really fun. And the cut line at the end is really, if you're close to that, it's definitely fun and exciting as well. So.
Yeah, the cut line's cool because you're at it's like poker. You're at the final table. All the chips are in the middle, and now we decide how we divvy it up.
Right.
Like in
Yeah.
football, it's 100,000 for the first place team. There's 12 guys. The 12th place gets $2,000. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a hell of a wild week, but it's a fun, like I say, poker final table, if you will.
Yeah.
So, uh, uh, so that online championship team that you won the overall finished with 111 points. Now there's 120 points available in a 12 teamer. Talk a little bit about that team. I mean, you're concentrating on the overall, but 111 is almost as good as it gets.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because that league I was drafting with a lot of the regular NFBC player. Like it was a league full of pretty big names in there. So they played to the very end, and I wasn't getting any freebies at the end there. Like every guy I had to struggle for, or had to be 2 weeks ahead of these other guys trying to pick them up. My fab was pretty low at the end also. So not only couldn't I get guys, I had no money to even try to get them. So that's the funny thing is, of all the leagues that I take it down, is one that's super competitive and with league full of sharks. But I mean, things just clicked. That one was really one at the draft for the most part. All my pitchers stayed healthy for all the whole season. Took Rodon late. It was just Manoa late. My closer was Romano. I had Alonso. I had Goldschmidt. Every guy, you really got to win at the draft table too. And when I draft some of these teams, I know kind of walking out of there, whether it's a competitor on my hands or not.
Yeah, definitely. So this team did not be in first place most of the year or all the way and then hung on at the end. I looked at 2.5 weeks to go. You were ninth. A week and a half, 10 days to go. You were fifth. You kind of moved into first a couple days before the end of the season. But talk about that ascent on how you finally got to the top and hung on then.
For the overall, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it was the second to last week of the season. I had I needed to pick up ratios, all over wins, and I had the most insane pitching week you could ever imagine. I had like 6 wins.
Yeah.
It was like a 0.9 ERA, a 0.6 WHIP. I mean, it was like you could frame the stat line from this week, and that vaulted me, that jumped me right into first place, and it was just it's a very different feeling once you're on top, because now you're still kind of panicking because you're looking at everyone behind you. Now you're the hunted. So it was definitely that second to last week where I just hit on every single start I had. And it's one of those things where every guy, I threw Bryce Elder, for my last fab dollar. And he pitched a complete game shutout that last week. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, Bryce Elder, like, come on. That's when I knew. I was like, all right, maybe this is a team of destiny. And sure enough, that's what it was.
I'd have to go out and get a Bryce Elder jersey and wear it to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I might. Well, I got another jersey too. I had custom made. It'll be a little surprise for people.
Good. Yeah. I think Griffin Banger had the first and second place teams a week and a half going into. So
yeah, we were. I was talking about this on another pod where we were, DMing each other on Twitter, wishing each other good luck. He's a great guy, also, Griffin. Yeah, props to him. He had a huge year. 2 teams in the top 5 is incredible. So yeah, we were having a lot of fun at the end there.
Yeah, he's coming to Las Vegas for the first time too. I haven't met him.
Yep.
I saw him on Jeff Erickson's pod, and really an interesting guy. So look forward to meeting him as well. So yeah, I got to ask you. So when you're doing prep like right now, I know you're drafting more now than you had in the off seasons in the past. But do you look at the ADPs? Are the ADPs important to you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm all over it. That's the best ADPs in the business. That's like it's one of my go-tos every day. I'm looking at, where not only that, I'll filter down drafts. If you have an OC, I'm going to filter down to that one draft only if I can, and see exactly where everybody's going, and spot values, spot guys that I think might be mispriced here and there. So not only do I look at them, I probably probably look at them too much and use them too much. But I mean, the tool is out there. I mean, it's one of the best
Yeah.
tools in fantasy right now. So yeah, I'm all over those all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because we used to not make them available. In fact, they were available for just anybody who had signed up for a league. We were like, well, if you're going to produce the ADPs, you should have them. But then we felt, you know what? It's good PR and it's good for everybody to prep. Why don't we make it available to everybody? I think we did that in 2019 was the first year really only
Yeah.
started doing that. So I think it was a good move on our part. And I know like Sirius XM hosts are always talking about our ADPs and such like that. So
Yeah, I have
uh,
buddies that didn't even play in the NFBC, and they would text me, "Hey, have this NFBC ADP? You know,
yeah,
this is pretty cool. This is available for anybody." I would
yeah,
tell them, "Yeah, check it out. This is like the gold standard." So, I
yeah,
mean, it's reaching people that aren't even in your game right now. So, I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's
Well,
definitely
yep. That's the
yeah,
goal. We do want people even in local leagues to kick ass with these because like you say, hell, when I do a draft, like I'm doing the auction in a couple of weeks, I'll download our auction values and I'm going right off that. I mean, I'm
that's
not going
it.
against our guys.
Yeah, yeah,
They know more than I do, so I'm going with what they do. Hey, let's talk about some of the MLB rules changes this year because it really could affect hitters and base stealers, right? We got the larger bags, which people don't, I don't know if it's 3 inches or something like that, but how is that affecting you? Are you looking into that? Are left-handed hitters like Anthony Rizzo standing out to you? Are you looking at the rules changes and understanding it, or is it just I'm going to believe it when I see it?
yeah. I mean, I'm not letting it sway my decision making in these drafts. I'm conscious of these things. I think it's anyone's guess right now how it's going to play out and how it's going to
Yeah.
impact certain guys. There's going to be guys that it certainly impacts greater than others. Rizzo comes to mind. Yeah.
Hmm.
Really left-handed, any big lefty pull hitter is probably going to, see some upticks in his batting average. But
Right.
when it comes down to the draft, I mean, I'm not really going to. It's not going to sway my decisions too much.
Hmm.
The bases are interesting.
Yep.
I think that will help more of the the elite base stealers than it will kind of the middle road or in the
Agreed.
lower
Yep.
echelon guys. But
Yep.
yeah, it's interesting. I guess we're all going to see how it plays out and how much that really affects everyone. But
Yeah, one of the rules changes is they can only throw over to first base like twice. So, like you say,
right,
the top base stealers, they're going to bait them over there, and
oh
then
yeah,
they're going to be ready to jump. I think so. I do
right,
think that the top guys, people are saying, well, maybe the 5 guy will go to 10, but I don't see that as much. Maybe 5 to 7, but those top guys are going to bait those throws over, and I just think they're going to plan their
yeah.
next jump and take off.
I think yeah, if you're a weak base stealer, you're not going to turn into a good one
No,
because
I,
the bigger bags. But yeah,
right.
so I
I
agree with
agree.
that.
Hey, let me talk to you about pocket aces because, some people, as you can see right now, I even talked to Bob Kramatula, I talked with Sean Johnson. They felt like they needed to concentrate more on pitchers and maybe even starting out with 2 pocket aces or at least 2 in the first 3 rounds. Has your drafting style changed through the years, and are you more receptive to pocket aces right now?
Well, it's funny because this year, unlike a lot of years in the past, I mean, pitchers are falling big time in
They are.
drafts.
Yeah.
You don't have to take a Garrett Cole or Burns in round one. They're falling to the 20s, 15,
Yep.
20.
Hmm.
In fact, my last OC, Cole fell to like the 21, 22, something like that.
Wow.
So there's been a definite shift in starting pitching where you can't take, you're losing out. You're taking a Cole, in the top 5 or something when you could get him 15 picks later. But yeah, so so far I've been happy waiting and getting those, the Wheelers, Urias, or
Hmm.
that Gossman in those 4th and 5th rounds, and kind of building that nice nucleus of bats in front of them. But
Yeah.
that might all change come March, main event season when
Yep.
the first draft we see Cole go pick 8, or Burns pick 8, Cole 10. That'll move the needle for sure.
That happens every year, and last year, the first live events were in Las Vegas on that Thursday. You wouldn't have believed it. That first round was just yellow, 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 yellow.
Right.
The ground was going, 4, 5, and all, and there was just a buzz in the room. I mean, people were there to watch, and it was just a buzz. I'm looking forward to this Thursdays in Las Vegas as well, but it always changes. But I was surprised right away when the drafting started that the yellow stickers weren't there in the first rounds of the DCs even,
Yeah.
and it has stayed that way. And certainly in the online championship, like you say, those guys are falling even to the 15 to 21, 22 sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see, but I am surprised that starting pitchers aren't going as quickly right now.
And that's too, yeah, because like you said, they jump up for the mains, but they've never been this low in
No, I don't think
DCs
so.
and OCs prior to
Right.
March main season. So I'm
Right.
curious. Maybe the cold does last to the turn, right? Which is still some helium from what you're seeing now, but the days of coal going one burns two. I don't think we're going to see that this year at
Yeah, I
all.
think it'll be tough too. Yep.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about saves and closers. How do you attack that? Do you try to get one good one, or I mean, that is an impossible position these days when 15 out of the 30 will lose their jobs before All-Star break, probably.
Yeah, and I've been pretty vocal with my stance on closes where, I don't want to devote too much draft capital in too early ones, but I'm happy to take one of those top 7 or 8 guys that actually have, job security
Yeah.
and then kind of just spec on closers, later down the road, in the middle teen rounds. But yeah, I just think too, in the overall component, I've talked about this many times where you kind of got to hit on guys late, to separate yourself. So
Right.
it doesn't always happen, more often than not, you're not going to hit on those late closers. But if you do, that's a big game changer for sure. So I like to, not devote too much draft capital and closers. Just get one for sure in the 15s, maybe one early and then the second one, around 12, 13, 14-ish. And just
Right.
hope you hit on that guy, and if not, take a couple late.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, trying to get them in fab is never easy and it's very costly. I mean, they can go for 400 if they got the job during the week, even higher than 400.
Right.
So careful with that strategy as well, thinking you can just pick them up in fab because it is not that easy. Trust me. Are there
Well, I will
any? I don't
say in
want.
12s, I will say in 12s, I've had success doing that. I think 15s
Correct.
mains are very different with closers
Yes,
for sure.
definitely.
But in the OCs, I do think,
Yeah.
I've been able to fab closers every year. It's just a matter of, staying on top of things. And,
Hmm.
there are owners that aren't as interested as the year goes further along, and you got to capitalize, during that time of the season. So
Yep.
15 is a different animal. I agree that, they're not out there, and if they are, they're going to be hard to get. So,
Yeah, the prices are
um,
much higher in the 15 team than the
yeah,
12 too, because
absolutely, yeah.
you know, it's a rare commodity to find them on fab. So I don't want to get too deep into your player evaluation, but are there any landmines, like you said, if they fall at a certain round, you're going to take them. Is there any players that you're trying to avoid? Is there a landmine in the first round you're thinking about that you're trying to avoid? Anybody you want to throw out there just to screw people up?
Well, I was said this before too. I think the third baseman. I think in that second round, we're seeing Riley and Devers go really
Yeah.
early, and I'm just not interested there. I think they're just more of a product of the scarcity of that position right now, and
Hmm.
owners feel like all right, the Machado, Bobby Witt, they're gone. There's no, it falls off a cliff. I got to grab these two right real quick. So I
Yeah.
think they're more of a product of scarcity than actual production. Right? They're not giving you speed. The average Riley hit well last year, but even that's debatable where those guys finish.
Hmm.
So you're looking at possibly 3 category guys going in top 20 picks where, I don't like to even mess around there. I want to get a lot of speed. If I'm on any bet, I'm taking in the top 20 for sure. And yeah, I'd rather settle for, a Bregman, 50 picks later or,
Hmm.
even, third baseman, 10th, 11th round versus, going
Yeah.
that early.
Yeah, third base is kind of weak this year. It's an interesting one. I want to just talk a little bit about rookies and how you deal with them. Are you worried about them? I mean, Gunnar Henderson is out there right now at the third base. I mean, certainly that lower second tier at the third base, but kid's got upside if he can hit for average, if he can hit, lefties and such. But what are your thoughts on any rookies? Are you worried about them in their rookie year? Football is different these days, right? I mean, these guys come right in and they just contribute, but baseball, it's still tough to do well as a rookie.
Yeah, and I think earlier on when I started playing, I was definitely more prone to taking those rookies or these
Hmm.
hot pedigree guys that haven't done anything so far. Where now I'm kind of, if the price is too high, I generally pass on those guys unless they're available later on. But yeah, Gunnar Henderson. I mean, listen, his range of outcomes is very wide. I feel like, right? I mean, like you said, can he hit? If he hits enough, he'll stay in that lineup. But they have a
Yep.
lot of options. Where does he hit in that lineup? There's a lot of decent bats up top. So Yeah, I mean, it's a guy I don't mind swinging on for sure. I do like some of the third basemen going a little later, so
Mhm.
I'm often passing on him where he's going. Bregman is a guy I've been targeting just because I think the value he presents, and I know he's
Yeah.
boring to a lot of people, but the production will be there. You're getting him in the 80s, sometimes 90s in some of these drafts. Where
Right.
yeah, I'm happy to take that solid bat in that section of the draft.
Yeah. Sean Childs in the early years, he would say he would want to get 75 homers and 75 stolen bases with his first three hitters.
Hmm.
That's changed, obviously, because there's not as much running. Maybe you get more homers and less stolen bases, but you sound like you're a component of that, trying to get 4 or 5 category guys when you're getting hitters, right?
Oh, absolutely, especially at the top of the draft, and that's why
Yeah.
even Riley and Dever, I don't think they're really elite in any category. I guess power, Riley for sure. Maybe Devers, he
Yeah.
fell off some last year, but I mean, 30 homers is nice, but if you're not giving me much speed and you're not
Mhm.
giving me, 300 plus batting average, it's usually a hard pass for me in the second round.
Yeah, yeah. So as you're filling out KDS for 12 team and 15 team, they're different. Where are you picking right now for KDS?
So I'm trying to go top of the draft in every single
Okay.
one of these, and I've been fortunate so far. Where I think my lowest pick was like 6 in all these
Okay.
OCs. So yeah, I just like that 2-3 turn a lot. You're still getting that ace. The bats are still really nice in the OC. In the 15s, DCs, I try to stay in the middle. If not the top of the round, just drafting on the ends in any 15 teamer is tough. You miss a lot of the runs. You feel like you got to reach on some guys, and yeah, it's just I like to stay a little more middle of the pack in the 15s. Where in the 12s, I'm happy to be 1, 2, 3 right there.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. That's the beauty of KDS. You can kind of plan your draft strategy. And when I look at national champions, I'll see him at 11. I'm like, huh. I go to look at his KDS when he said it that year. That might be his first one. He's already planned
Yeah,
that out before he gets to the main event. He wants to be at that, and these are the guys he's targeting. So, uh, everybody learn about KDS because it is for you. It's for the customers to tell. Yeah, I started that because people would bitch. I would get out the draft picks and it would be, oh, great. Everyone's got their leagues and their draft picks. I'd get a phone call. Greg, you screwed me. I got the 15th pick. Damn it. I
yeah.
can't win from there. Like, holy cripes. I can't
No,
even win now.
yeah, I love that feature. That's awesome. And it's funny when you go to the league homepage, you see owners with a draft preference of
Yep.
12.
Hmm.
They got the first preference and they get the 12. If you
Right.
want to draft out of the corner, you'll
Yep.
get it more often than not. So
Yeah.
it's just cool that you can kind of pick your own spot. So
Yeah. Some people would want to be in the middle, and they don't want 115. They don't want to miss the runs because you know what it's like, right? When you're at one and you got 29 picks to wait, it's kind of stressful. So everybody's got their different feeling of where they want to draft, which is why I like to ask such like that. All right. So we
yeah.
got to set up our menu here right now. So we know people are going to buy us drinks when we get to Las Vegas. They know I like Coronas. So what are people buying you to try to get in your favor out in Las Vegas?
I'm an IPA guy, craft beer.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. So if you see me want to buy me an IPA or something, maybe if it's a little later in the night, a shot, but definitely not before the draft. But yeah, no, definitely looking forward to meeting people, having a beer, and just kicking back. So hopefully the weather is
yeah.
nice too. I don't think I've ever been in to Vegas in March before, but it can't be too bad,
So
right?
March is very, very interesting. I'm just going to give you a history here because we've had years where the wind was so high that the airport was shut down. On that first day of drafting,
Oh,
people
wow.
weren't able to get in. We had people on the phone. And then we've had marches, which is just beautiful. Go to the Bellagio pool and just hang out. It's just beautiful. But the wind can be a factor then. Now, that weekend, Sweet 16 at T-Mobile Arena is there. It's just going to be wild. Taylor Swift's got 2 concerts on Friday and Saturday at the Allegiant Stadium. It's going to be wild. So if you're coming out there, get ready. But hopefully the weather will be good. The pools at the Mirage are very, very nice, so we can all hang out if we have to. But
Well, it's got to be better than football. This past year, I walked out of the airport. I swear it was like 107
isn't
degrees.
that great? It's fantastic when it's that warm.
Oh my gosh. Do you like it that hot?
Yes,
Oh my
yes,
gosh. I felt like I
yes.
was
I
walking
live
through a
in
sauna.
Wisconsin. It's
Oh,
going to
okay,
be
yeah,
below
that's right.
zero again. No, we love
That's
it.
right. Yeah,
No, when it's that warm and you go to the pools, it's great though. But yeah, you just start sweating as soon as. But
yeah.
hopefully, it's going to be like high 70s, which is
Oh,
can be
perfect.
possible
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there. Yeah. So it's good. So bring pants, but bring sweatshirts, but then bring shorts, and you just never know. But I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing you out there. Like I said, we're going to have more than 100 people are staying at the Mirage. I think after drafts, we're going to go by the sports book. There's bars, there's restaurants. We're going to bump into people somewhere throughout the weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. People are looking forward to meeting you. I know you're going to look forward to meet some of our veterans and new players as well. Everybody, come on out, right, Andrew? Come to Las Vegas.
That's it. Come out. It's going to be a fun time. Yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Andrew Geller. Best of luck this year. Congrats on last year's win. If you win 2 in a row, nobody's done that ever in the main event or the online championship. You'd be our first 2-time winner in the online championship. So best of luck there.
Thanks, Greg. That's the goal. So we'll see what happens.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. I got another good guest next week. I'm finalizing it right now. Look for it on Twitter. I'll tell you who it is. But we got lots of champions coming on this high-stakes fantasy network. All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.